Oh, my lord, my lord, my lord. Hello, hello, hello. Morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, you're all well. Oh, my god. Apologize for the, I guess, late stream, right? Because technically I wanted to come in earlier, but, freaking public transport really fucked me today. So, what I thought maybe it'd be delayed by 30 minutes, nope, it got delayed by a bit more. So, yeah. My bad about that. Well, yeah, my bad about that, chance. Actually, you know what? Hold up. Why the hell is this in zero point 0.5 speeds? 1.5. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, if anything, I mean, the plan for today is pretty much continuing from yesterday, right? So, you know, talking more about well, continuing to talk about the Amphoreus storyline, right? Since what did we get up to yesterday? Um, I know definitely did 3.0. Did I do 3.1? We spoke about 3. Yeah, we do it. Right, because we spoke about Chibios, right? Yeah. Oh, there's resets. Oh. No, but we'll do this. We won't really get to talk about it. Okay. So there's that. And I think wait, did the I did the tower. I did the tower for last night. Before it did Stella Sora. Wait, hold on, let me check. Because I think I ended up buying everything in the shop for Stella Sora. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I did end up buying everything in that shop. Let me open up and check. What the hell is Stella? Oh, there it is. Because I think, didn't the banner also change rights to Nazuna? I think that's her name, Nazuna. Or am I confusing her with freaking, what's that? With that VTuber? No, I think it hasn't reset yet. Hasn't changed. Oh, it changes in an hour. Okay, never mind. Okay, so this changes in an hour. Yeah, so I believe it's meant to be like a raid event or like a raid boss or something, right? This thing, because you can check the shop for this, and from what I checked earlier, yeah, this thing, the discs aren't that bad. Like you can actually get discs, right? And pulls, obviously, right? It's not looking that bad. I'm not sure which, you know, I'm not sure how many of these you get per, run, but or how many you get, but it doesn't look that bad to be honest. Um, let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's literally gonna reset in 2 minutes. Yeah, okay, 2 minutes. Yeah, because I managed to literally buy everything from the shop, and I'm not sure if it was worth it to be honest, because to buy everything from the shop, you literally have to do all of this right. And I'm not sure if using all the stamina I did to do this was worth it. We can rate together. I mean, yeah, sure. I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It would be, depending on how they set out, could be could be quite fun. But yeah, yeah, I'm not sure if I if spending so much stamina here was worth it. I mean, maybe, right? Because maybe I don't know. It might be worth it, but I guess we have to wait what a few minutes for this. Okay, that's fine. We can wait for like a few minutes. Yeah. Should I try and pull this before? in the last 30 seconds, we do one 10 pull for the disc. Wait, does it carry over? Hold up, hold up, hold up. Wait a minute. Would not be immediately added. All recruitment attempts that failed to obtain will only independent from other banners. What does that mean? Does that mean only within the limited disc banner or only within this specific banner? Because if I do that, I'm literally just gonna be, you know, pissing or wasting a 10 pool. Maybe not. But I am kind of tempted. Nah. We're not pigs. We're not pigs. Besides, there's only 24 seconds left. Or maybe I did it in the last second. What happens if I do it in the last second? Hold up. Nah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Wait, I did do this right. Yeah, I did. Okay, nice. One event has ended. The date has changed. And has this changed? Or is it still... Oh, okay, so they didn't immediately add Nazano. Yeah, sure, whatever. Playing a lot off stream. I mean, it's a lot of just, you know, doing things, leaving things in auto. Because I haven't really, let's say, because what? If I'm being honest, gameplay from, let's say, like difficulty 3 that I did on stream and in difficulty 6 hasn't changed too much, if I'm being honest, right? It just adds like one extra floor. So if it was like a big change, sure. This, before it ends, I would do like actual proper runs on stream, right? Because I just did one run here to see like how it is, right? Because this doesn't end until 18 days, so we'll probably spend like a day or so like doing like trying to optimize this, right? Because this is similar to like in DA, right, where you have to do specific things to get more points. So yeah, and I guess Cataclysm Survivor is kind of whatever, if I'm being honest. Because yeah, this one's kind of whatever. There isn't really too much of a difficulty, right? Because it's kind of just like Vampire Survivors. If that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're essentially good there. Hold up. Why the hell did this freaking this open? Hold up. Let's do our daily temple. Let's do our daily temple and hope that we can get what's it called again? The trainer card. Oh, and tomorrow is when they do the mains, isn't it? When it's gonna rebalance everything. Ooh. That's gonna be interesting to see how the rebalance affects stuff. Because from tomorrow onwards, you're gonna want to start using guts cards. And some easy death talk. That too. I saw that there was like a death like post, but I didn't look at it, right? God damn it, fucking give me. Oh my god, I'm not actually gonna get it, am I? I mean, this is unnecessary, but send it. Okay. The first one. Please be it. Not another eye shower. God damn it. This is LB2. Okay. Why couldn't you be SSR? Unless I get a suit Tosho? No, that's not. Again? Ugh. Ugh. Bruh. I had to fully pity this. Are you kidding me? And you technically want LB1 for this, which is the annoying thing. Because you get one minimum LB1 for this card. Instead, I have LB2 Rice Shower, which is... That fucking Rice Shower. So she can go to level 40. So she gets... I mean, like, beyond frequency 20, initial friendship, special priority 45 isn't the worst, I suppose. Stamina and training effectiveness. It's not the worst. It's not the best, though. Yeah, whatever. Whatever, it's fine. Okay, okay, let's see. I don't think... I'm pretty sure I logged in really early today, right? To use up my stamina here. Because I should be... Yeah, okay. So I don't really need to do the runs here. And I guess let me bring up the ZZZ talk. And so we can more or less immediately head into the Amphoreus talk. I think it's this. Yeah. It's that, and I don't think there was anything else that was like, let's say, announced or... Yeah, I don't think there was anything else announced. Also, tomorrow is probably also going to be the Yuki pause, right, for CZN. And I guess no, Yuki is... Is Yuki tomorrow for CZN? I think she is, right? Hold on, when the hell is Yuki? Oh, so Yuki is tomorrow. Oh, okay. Let's see. Don't think there was like anything else. Yeah, no, I don't think there was any other, let's say, announcements or anything along those lines. Okay. Okay, so let's see the ZZZ talk, because the only thing I think I saw is something about buffing characters or something, right? But I'm not sure what the hell that was like. It meant to be. Nothing in HI3. I never have leftover stamina to the story. You need stamina to do the story? Alright, you need stamina to do like the earlier parts of the story, right? Because you don't need any stamina to do like the, let's say, the quote unquote open world stories. So like Colorstein, Elysium Everlasting, or I think the first half of the Moon Arc. You don't need any stamina for those sections. Well, for I'm pretty sure for the last chapter, chapter 35, and I think 34, you do need stamina because those are stages. Well, I'm pretty sure like the last chapter of part 1 is, you know, stage based. And then for part 1.5, so the Sealy arc and the Vita arc, those are both open, quote unquote open world, right? So you don't need stamina for them. Currency Wars is weird. Isn't Currency Wars just TFT? That's what I kind of like about it, because it's just TFT. Okay, so let's see, what is this? We also designed this about the topics you care about. Devs have given us a kind of response and brought some sweet improvements and innovations in this new reveal. Barry has already helped proxies highlight the essential information. Okay, wait, is this the same thing, the Hoyo link? Okay, it's the same thing. Okay. Bruh. Okay, sure. I'm just gonna have to open them in a new tab, each one. I think that's the last one. Oh, okay, that's the last one. Pretty sure this is first. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. I need a healer even though there's no recommended one. Also, cons should help a lot. For what? In Currency Wars? I'm pretty sure in Currency Wars is all dependent on you what uh traits you have open, right? And I guess your items, right? Then again, I haven't really done too much into Currency Wars, right? Because um I can't remember why. Yeah, I can't remember why. Okay, but let's see. It gets rough really quickly. Ooh, does it? Okay, that sounds fun. If it gets rough really quick, that does sound fun. Okay, let's see. Main story highlights. Lacking direction or aim. We got... lacking direction or aim for the ZZZ story so far for season 2. Um... I... Is it? I mean... Let me try and remember. I mean, the main reason why season 2 even starts is because we got that picture that our teacher was seen in the Minion Hollow, right? So we come to this we came to the peninsula, Wi-Fi Peninsula, and acting as each one's disciples to to act as cover for us, you know, uh investigate, right? Every patch is a character quest. Uh yes. No, you're right. But technically, you could just say the same thing about for season 1 too, right? Because technically, 1.4 was a Miyabi character quest. 1.3 was technically a Yanagi character quest. 1.4 was literally an Astra Evelyn character quest. 1. That was 1.5. 1.6. What happened to 1.6? That was when Vivian was introduced, right? When Vivian and Hugo, yeah. 1.6 was literally a Vivian character quest, and 1.7 was a Hugo character quest. So technically, a lot of the um, stories before them were also character quests, right? Most of the time, it's just a villain turned into a hollow monster. I mean, that's kind of has been the formula, right? Because Bringer turned into the freaking sacrifice. The 1.7, what's that bitch called again? The redhead one? The one in the. What's that name again? The redhead golem called? The one that oh my god, I can't remember what her name is now. But she also turned into a hollow monster. Um I guess 1.3 didn't, right? Because we were in the simulation. 1.2 did with Pompeii turning into the hollow monster in 1.2. 1.1 was 1.1 was with Jane, right? So that wasn't really, let's say, like a big story quest in 1.1 because it was technically just like the Jane story, right? And the Jane story and the Chinyi character quest, right? That was 1.1. And I guess in season 2, uh I mean, in 2.0, technically there was no Hollow Monster, right? Because what we fought in 2.0 was Maverick, right? Which was the overseer of the Exalted. So technically, there was no Hollow Monster in 2.0. Well, the people were being turned into hollows, but that was something that the Exalters, were planning to do. 2.1 was the introduction of Yuzuha and Alice, right? Um, that was just a user her character quest, right? 2.1 was mainly just like a user character quest, right? And user Hondalis, right? And that is true. 2.2 2.2 was the Magas, the Orpheus Magas and I Sword stuff, right? And I guess, I mean, the big reveal there was that, I Sword was Mavra, the Overseer, right? And then, then she turned into the big titty hollow monster. And then 2.3 was, I guess, trying to find out more about what the fuck, what's her name again? Sarah is doing, right? Because in 2.2, yeah, because in 2.2 it ended with, her essentially getting the insignia of the Overseer, right, from the creator. And then 2.3, I thought that, we'd immediately go into that, but it didn't really, it barely touched that. In the whole of the 2.3 story, around at most 20 minutes, it had, let's say, Sarah's screen time, right, to see what it went on, right? And even then, we kind of got blue board at the end, right? Since Sarah and the other disciple literally went for reports and then we couldn't. So it was like, wait 40 days and then you'll find out, right? So I wouldn't say that there is no direction. I would say it's more like the main let's say the main reason why we even came, and let's say Sarah too, haven't, let's say, been in the spotlight, right, of the story so far, right? Because a lot of it has been, let's say, you know, developing and showing you the new characters like Yuzuha, like the Spook Shack members, the rest of the members of Obo Squads, right? And also like the Young Kui Summit and now the Krampus division, right? That was introduced last patch with Zhao Dailing and Banyue. So yeah, that's I guess is the main issue, right? That in the whole past few patches, I guess since season 2 started, it's been more focused on introducing characters, right, and their stories rather than focusing on the main plots, right? Version 2.4 will be the turning point of the story as Sarah rushes towards the creator and Yoshi Yuan makes his entrance. Season 2's climax is. Huh. Wait, what? So 2.4 is going to be the climax of season 2. Uh, okay then. I don't know then. Hold up. if 2.4 is actually the climax of season 2, then I might have some mixed feelings because I thought that maybe it goes up to until like 2.6, right? The story for season 2. Because if we're already reaching the climax, then I don't know. I mean, I guess it's technically possible for them to do it, but I mean, I guess it is possible, right? Because we technically learned we kind of like quote unquote found out a bit more about the teacher, right? That she was indeed working with Exaltus, but what we don't know is why specifically she was working with them, right? Because we kind of got more as a confirmation that she was at the end of 2.3. I mean, I guess we'll have to see how 2.4 rolls, right? Narrative structure feels familiar. Characters popping up out of nowhere. We've heard you loud and clear. I mean, yeah. I mean, Opal Squad is kind of fine, right? Because it makes sense that they're there. Yudhari and Lucia, they kind of pop out of nowhere. Plot structure optimization. The converging storylines design structure aims to let players witness the growth of various characters, ultimately taking us the stage together. In the future, we will deeply integrate narrative with gameplay to provide a more diverse and exciting plot experiences. That doesn't. That's like. I would say that's kind of vague, but sure. Get to know your friends new friends early. Since version 1.6, we've been focusing on long-term character development and integration, with special attention to key characters highlight moments. For example, in 2.4, Ye Shunguang will gradually get acquainted with the proxies, revealing untold stories. I mean, yeah, because doesn't the crux of season 2 kind of like more or less revolve around her, right? Because that's kind of like how the trailer makes it seem, right? For CZZ, for season 2, right? Because if you look at where's the season 2 video? Is it this one? No. Where is the season 2 video? Is it this one, right? Yeah, it's this one, this one. Like when they introduce all the characters, like yeah, Shengguang is like literally the one that's like seemed to be like the most like this section at the end of the end of the trailer kind of makes it seem like she's the integral one, right? More than Yishuan, even though Yishuan is, let's say, the one who was like the front and center of this, right? Maybe it's just me that has that view, uh but either way, this is about like introducing characters and then developing them further. Uh I would say yes, because they kind of did that with Manata, right? Because Manata was introduced in 2.0, and then we slowly kind of saw more and more of him, right? And then in 2.3 is where we saw a big amount of Manata in the story, right? With the Ultimate stuff, right? So yeah, I guess. But I guess mm, I guess the slightly annoying thing about this in season 2 is that we haven't really seen too many of the characters from season 1, right? Because I think technically the only character from season 1 that we've really seen is Trigger and I guess Soldier 11, right? But that's only because they're part of Over Squad. We haven't seen, from the top of my head, we haven't really seen anyone from Hands. We haven't seen any of the Caesar squad. I can't remember what their name is now. We haven't seen anything from Yishuan, Jane, or them, or even like the Nicole's group, right? Imo Manus is a really good character in season 2. I mean, yeah, he's like the one character who's gotten like a good amount of development that you've seen like in multiple stages, right? Because even though I did like, let's say, Alice, Yuzuhan Alice's story in 2.1, it is also a bit disappointing that we didn't really see them at all in 2.3, which was, with Spook Shack again, right? With Yutahari and Lucia. I mean, I guess, do see Yuzuha, right? But we see her for what, like, one or two scenes? And then that's it, right? So it's kind of like, we don't really. We see them once and then not again, kind of, right? Which is kind of like the annoying thing. And surprisingly, Manato was the only one we kind of consistently saw, which made 2.3 his story kind of real nice, right? And then this is like what I'm worried, right? Where we're gonna see Yesheng Guang, right? Her, we saw her in 2.3, right? And I fear that we're just gonna see her in 2.4, and then we may not see her again afterwards, right? Because supposedly, if like this is if I take this to face value, 2.4 should be the climax of the season 2 story, right? And I guess the difference between, let's say, Yeshen Guang and, let's say, Miyabi, right, which 2.4 focused on, right, was that we saw Miyabi literally in 1.0, right? So we already knew her and we were already more or less acquainted with her. Well, in comparison, we've seen her in what? At most for 20 minutes, I think. 2.8 Avenger moment. I feel like they may do that for 2.4. And if they do that, I don't know. It'll be a bit annoying. Because also the issue is that we don't really, let's say, like have a villain in mind, right? For season 2. Because technically it was, what, at the start it was the Overseer, Mavra. But then that kind of got resolved in 2.2 with, finding out that it's actually Isolde. And then we beat Isolde. But then Sarah comes back into play. But I doubt that we will actually, beat Sarah in 2.4, right? Because it feels like Sarah is going to be more for like a later on thing, right? That's how I feel like she's been set up, right? So I don't know. Because I would get it if, like, we didn't beat Mavra in 2.0, right? I mean, in 2.2, right? Because then we have like a clear, let's say villain in mind for season 2. Because for season 1, by I think 1.2, we already had an idea that, it was Bringo, right? Like they already had given us enough clues that, the for season 1 is more than likely that Bringo is going to be the one that's going to be like the main villain, right? With all of the clues, right, and how much they kept, pointing out that the mayoral election was coming up, and that Bringo, the police commissioner, was one of the leading parties, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could make Sarah for season 2, right? But then we don't really. If they do that, then we don't really have like it's a representative for the Exaltist after Sarah dies, or if like let's say if we do actually fight her and she does die in 2.4. So I don't know. That's why I don't feel like Sarah. Let's say we shouldn't we should fight her. Let's say in 2.4, but we shouldn't let's say beat her right in 2.4. If that makes sense. Okay, let's see. Will our old powers be left forgotten? Where the initial story go? Yeah, because I guess coming back to this, right? Because technically, the only time we saw any of the season 1 characters were in the beach storyline. So after you do the 2.1 main story, and then you go to the fantasy resort, then I guess you can see like season 1 characters. And I guess that's also when you first see Chinatsu, the first member of the Angels of Delusions, right? Because God knows when the rest of the angels are going to show up. Well, the other 2 are going to show up. Despite season 1 being episodic, had a better ongoing story. Despite season 2 displaying itself as a continuous story to feel something. No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Because even though in like season 1 we were literally like, let's say, meeting different, let's say, groups and dealing with their stuff, there's still like a very focused overarching story, right? With like finding more about like let's say Wise and Belle's, let's say, their motivation, right? And then with the Bringer stuff, right? Well, in season 2, yes, that's the focus of our teacher, right? And why she was in the Lemonian Hollow image, but it doesn't feel like it feels like it's the focus, but it's not, right? And instead everything else takes focus. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the main issue was where, for me, the main issue was, let's say, with like Mavra, right? Because technically, the main villains for season two are the Exaltists. I mean, technically for season one, two, but we didn't really know too much then. But I don't know. I feel like the sword, reveal that I saw being Mavra is fine, but I feel like maybe then they shouldn't have, let's say, killed her off that quickly, right? In 2.3, I mean in 2.2. Uh, While everyone has their own social circles that continue to appear in Proxy's lives and showcase new sides to themselves through the main story, and events like Venus's new look in 2.0 Gravity Cinema events. Yeah, so basically, you'll see the older characters in events. That's essentially what's going to be, right? So if you want to see the old characters, play the events. Which, yeah, I guess, right? Because they're not, let's say, too involved in YFA Peninsula, right? Because they're all in the Throne Quarter. But I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. Because technically, the only ones from season one that we see, well, are somewhat seen constantly are Soldier 11 and Trigger. Right, but that's only, you know, come to at the end of 2.1 and then in 2.2, right? I don't think we saw them in 2.3. No, no, we didn't. Yeah. Initial story. The main story will have increased relevance to the AI plotline, and internet will be regularly updated. Okay, yeah, that's the thing too. Um, the fairy plotline, because when was the last time fairy was actually relevant? Um, 1.1, I think, right? Because I don't think fairy did too much in the 1.4 story. I mean, in the 1.3 story, not really either, right? I guess 1.2 with the Pompey and stuff, right? Maybe, but yeah, like Fairy has pretty much just been there, chilling in the background. Right, so I mean, yeah, I mean, but I think that at the same time it's fine that, let's say, like the fairy stuff hasn't, let's say, like come to the forefront, because I feel like the fairy plot line can't really continue until we know more stuff about, let's say, the different regions and the different factions, right? As I don't think the fairy plotline can really, let's say, you know, be, a priority, right? It's just something that you have to remember in the background. Okay, so that's that. Urban Evolution. New shops are finally here for real. New shops. Alright, we haven't had any new shops or any new mini games, have we? In ZZZ. The 404 Era Live House making a debut soon with familiar faces in the front of 6th Street Metro. The antique shop Buyuan in Phylum Heights will also be featured in due time. The Hot Pot restaurant will also officially open before season 2 ends. Hmm. I mean, sure, but what can you do in those shops? Right? Because what? You have the coffee shop because you want your energy. You have the disc shop because to tune discs. There hasn't been any new mini game since the race minigame in 1.6, I think, right? I mean, this is kind of whatever, right? Because it was just something where you can go in, but you can't really let it interact with anything. It's kind of eh for me, right? Sure, for my people, maybe more immersive, right? Because you can go into the shops, but if it doesn't, let's say, really feel like you can do anything in there, what's the point? 2.5, so not even 2.4, because 2.5 brings more updates to the sandbox. A new way of getting around will be related to Shen Guang's ability. Okay, so she's going to be released in 2.5. I guess that makes sense, right? Since we know that 2.4 is going to be Banyue and Dailing, right? New ways to move around. Is she going to fly on her sword? I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, right? So, kind of like flying? Unless, unless, unless they're finally adding it. Unless they're finally adding the also fabled space bar, the jump button for ZZZ. They could. I have a feeling they're not going to, but maybe. Because, I don't know. It feels like an action game should have something like, vertical, right? So a jump button. Pre-watch. What do you mean pre-watched? She's gonna fly on her ship. Yeah, I mean that's most likely when it's gonna be, right? She's probably just gonna. You have an option to fly on her sword, which moves her faster, right? It's just like, yeah, well, sure, right? Map and gameplay integration. Sorry. We'll attempt to better integrate certain monster skills with stages and environments to enrich your gaming experience. What, so like the enemies interact with the environment? Oh yeah, that'll be cool. Because I don't think they really do, right? No, they don't. Enhanced exploration experience. Perception techniques will have more applications. Plus, kind bamboo will help you with treasure detection. The exploration side quest and new IP collectibles is an immersion level upgrade. Main story progression seamlessly integrates the map exploration, letting you collect rewards while completing missions. I mean, sure. I don't know if it's just me, but I don't feel like it was ever hard to find uh like the treasure boxes in ZZZ, right? They're usually not really hidden. They don't even look at you. But enemies, I mean, yeah, because like a lot of the enemies we fight are fairly big, right? So they have like wide ranges, right? It's only like the small humanoid enemies that actually bother to look at you, right? Because they have a smaller hitbox, like the Hugo or the Jane enemies, even like the freaking fucker who has the flamethrower, right? I can't remember what his name is. Oh, NPCs. Oh, what when you like go near them? Do they look at you? I guess not, right? They just kind of like stand still. Eh, I suppose that is true. Okay. Diverse game modes. Keeping the positive and casual gameplay while improving the other shortcomings. Refine and redefine, filtering out promising gameplay mechanics for further innovation. That's just showing the event, the picture event that just finished, but sure. Striving for excellence, highly reviewed gameplay modes will be iteratively optimized, adding more content to deliver a consistently premium experience. I mean, sure, but if they gave like, let's say, like an example, right? I would, let's say, have some more confidence, right? Because this is just words for me. Right. If this was showing like something new and not just showing the freaking event that just finished, I would say sure, right? That's like something to look forward to, right? But it's just the it's literally just a screenshot of the event that just passed. And technically this was just I guess a further refinement of a previous event from I think 1.5? I think it's 1.5. So I mean, I guess they're just gonna maybe add more filters to this when they bring this back. Hollow Zero is getting a massive upgrade. Integrating combat and exploration to create a gameplay experience with enhanced immersion and progression loops. Venture into the Hollow and gather resources and grow stronger. So instead of rather than let's say like make it stage gameplay, they might make it into like a whole map thing for Hollow Zero. Yeah, I mean that could be cool if they do it like that rather than it being stage to stage. You do map a whole giant map. Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. Multiplayer gameplay is back. When was the last time multiplayer was the thing? I guess the mini event and the Bamboo Falls stuff, right? Yeah, the Bamboo Falls and the um mini games at the arcades were the early multiplayer, right? Cool breakthrough in multiplayer modes. Players in a team can now jointly unleash their iconic chain attacks together. Oh, okay. This could be interesting. This could be interesting. I am ready to play whatever day is this and just get inted by other people just spamming stuff. But yeah, I mean this could be interesting. Yeah, yeah, no multiplayer was a thing in pre-beta, right? And then they removed it, right? Because I think you could do a multiplayer for when you were fighting the weekly bosses, right? Because I remember seeing like clips of that. But then I'm surprised they didn't do anything like that until now, since technically they already had these systems for it. I guess. More features, additional exciting mechanics will be added, making the multiplayer experience something to look forward to. Mechanics into the multiplayer experience. Huh. Okay. I mean, this could be interesting too. I mean, yeah, this would be interesting, depending on like how it works. Yeah. Okay. What will be disappointing is if you've just they make it multiplayer and you just fucking fight the giant mech. Because I guess what makes multiplayer kind of fun is if sure if they make you fight a giant mech, but if it has like specific multiplayer mechanics, then I would say it'd be like okay, that'd be more interesting, right? But if we're just fighting a punching bag, it's gonna be like yeah, it's gonna lose its longevity for me. Well, in my opinion, if that's like mechs for like multiplayer, then yeah, okay, that could be more interesting. Logic to multiplayer combat. Uh, I suppose, yeah. They haven't really done too much multiplayer, right? I mean, technically, Genshin has been doing more and more multiplayer, right? And I was, especially with the release of UGC, like I've seen some UGC stages which are literally just PvP, right? And it's not too bad, right? Yeah, I mean, this could be quite interesting. Combat level up. What is this? Missing your favorite characters. Threshold simulation is this. Oh, the thing they did with Ellen and Sanbi, right? New gameplay mode Threshold Simulation is designed to let more veteran characters shine and thrive. We'll continue to polish and provide a stage for them. Uh, I just want them to upgrade the not Yishuan. Oh my god, what is her name? What is literally her name? 1.0, not Alan. What was the other limited character in 1.0? Um, oh my god, I can't remember. Not Grace. Limited characters, not the character that was in the second banner. She has part of the police. Like the biggest replay part of her trailer was, with the ass shot and gun. I can't remember what her name is now. Um, Yeah, Jesus Christ, I can't remember her name now. But either way, like I hope that they let's say like improve her gameplay. Zhu Yuan, yeah, Zhu Yuan, yeah. That's her name, Zhu Yuan. Yeah, I hope that they let's say like buff her essentially, right? Because like the other day when I freaking brought out the Zhu Yuan in the essentially the new game, the new end game for CCZ, I remembered why I like playing her, right? Because I do like her play style. What felt ass was, if you want her to play smoothly, you need the M1, right, for the reloads. But also, like, her damage doesn't, keep up, right? But I hope she gets buffed, right? I do hope she gets buffed. They changed. No, it did do much. It did do quite a bit for Ellen. Because Ellen's rotation became much smoother and her damage, like, literally jumped, right? So Ellen's changes did do quite a bit. The same for what's her name, Sandy, right? Because it became much smoother for both characters. Never played with any abyss with her lady. I think you have to play the character to be able to see, right. Worried about standard character power levels, combat interaction too simple. In version 2.5 will feature specific power ups for standard characters. Standard characters power ups. Are we seeing a Grace? No. What matters is because technically every standard character kind of like, let's say some play at the start of the game, right? Um but I feel like the only two characters which, let's say, the only character that was like kind of like the worst was freaking Nakamura, right? Since like you could do stuff with the other characters, but Nakamura was like the worst, right? Because a lot of Nakamura's damage is very much reliant on you striking from behind, right? Which, yeah, I guess it's kind of neat, right? It's kind of like unique, but you couldn't really always do that, right? Although, to be honest, rather than Nakamura, what I'm kind of more interested in how do they buff a Soldier 11? Because I do like Soldier 11's gameplay, right? Because it's kind of like rhythmic, right? Because you have to like at certain beats, you have to play with her. Oh, this could be interesting. Like HSR Copium. The buffs that they did for in HSR weren't bad, right? And it wasn't for standard characters. The buffs were literally all for limited characters. Yeah, like no standard character was buffed. Rena doesn't do anything too. She provides some sort of a buff, right? So if anything, what they'll probably do for Rena is like improve her buff and probably make it so that her puppets do something like an aftershock attack, right? That's what I'm assuming what they'll do for like Rena, right? Because can't really see what else they'll do for her. And what's this? Increased ease of gameplay. Welcome aboard, everyone. The old veterans or new fresh faces. We're all family here. New players, we are welcoming new friends by helping newcomers progress faster with the early game. Sure. Veteran players in 2.4 Subian Temple Management welcomes a one-click AFK feature, freeing up your time. Either battery quick sweep or drive disk substat select. Drive disk substat collection and then combat damage compilation. Okay, why is this finally being added, by the way? Okay, this should have been added like much earlier. The in combat damage compilation. Basically, kind of like a DPS meter. I feel like this should have been added way earlier. Because we technically after battle we have that rating thing, but it's kind of like who generated the most decibels, I think, right? That's technically what that measures, which is like who the fuck cares? Hey. But the substat selection. Uh I mean, sure. But that's all in 2.5. This is what this is nice, but That's all in 2.5. Well, apart from the one-click AFK thing. Constantly innovating and constantly progressing. We're both creators and part of the player community. Welcome, everyone. And I think that was it, right? Yeah. Wasn't that like a small GIF that kind of like showed a small, very, very small snippet of Shengguang, yeah, Shengguang's gameplay? Because there's also something going about that like had Ye Shengguang. Hold up. Almost showed my freaking for you on my Twitter. That wouldn't mean bad. Uh, no, but no, I can't find it. Reddit. Oh, it's from Billy Billy. I'm assuming this isn't leaks if it was from Billy Billy, right? Oh, actually, it could be still leaks, but so it's like a very small snippets. I mean, she does look good, and like Swords Rising. Oh yeah, I mean, we'll probably skip dialing for her, but okay, it's fine. Okay, okay. But yeah, I mean, like some of the stuff that I guess the devs talked about. Yeah, I'm just let's say half of the stuff that they spoke about. Yeah, sure, right. And they had like for me, they had like examples of like what they're doing or what they're gonna do. Well, for the other half, they kind of. I would have preferred if they also showed examples, right? But I mean, we'll see, right? We can only just wait and see, right? Because the one thing about the ZZ devs so far is that they have more or less, let's say, like changed stuff for the better. Although, the changing and removing the I feel like changing and removing the TVs is both a blessing and a curse at the same time for CZZ. Don't believe any of it until I see it in action. Yeah, I mean that's the same for me, right? Because until like we actually see it in game, right? It's pretty much just like words, right? But I mean, like we'll see. We'll see whenever they. I guess from 2.5 onwards, right? Because that 2.5 was like when the some of the changes were gonna occur. If anything, we'll see the changes between 2.5 and I'm assuming 2.8 is the end of 2. Of season 2. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what they do. Okay, let's see. Apart from that, I don't think there was like any other announcements or anything, right? Or none that I can see. Yeah, none that I can see. Okay. Oh, and apparently a lot of people believe the ZZZ Toho anime, right? Which is like, how? How do people believe that? Courage. Hello, Courage. Hope you've been well. But yeah, how did a lot of people believe that the what was it, the 2032 ZZZ anime by I don't get it. I'm pretty good, Courage. I am pretty good. Okay, let's see. So I said we got to 3.1. I guess. Okay, I guess we talked about ZZ for way longer than I intended, but it's fine. Okay, and I am kind of tempted to do the new what is it called again? The new Apocalyptic Shadow. But then if I do that, we're not literally not gonna talk about the Amphoreus story. So maybe we do this tomorrow. Yeah, maybe we'll do this tomorrow. Is that the bow skin? Hell no, I don't have the bow skin. It is not worth it at all, that skin. Like, if it was an actual, like, proper skin, then sure. But this is not worth it at all. The only thing that's really, in my opinion, literally the only really thing that's worth it in the spending events, if I wanted to, I would only literally go for this and just this. Everything else is like, eh. I mean, this is like okay stuff, right? But this, I wouldn't say this is worth it at all. No, 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 no. Because like, it would have been better if what they changed in the old was, showing all of the Actually, no. I mean, if they showed the other Flame Crisis S, it'd be nice. But because of, let's say, Cyrene's character, and after everything we know from 3.7, it makes sense as why it's only Trailblazer, right? It does make sense, even though it's technically a bit cringe. But yeah, I mean, it annoys me that it does make sense of why it's like that. But it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Okay. Wait, do I have any more things to do here? Use here? No. How do I get more of these again? I completely forgot. Oh, I have to do the event stuff. Right. Yeah, okay, I have to do the event stuff to get more of this. Okay. But she's literally your wife. Yeah, I mean, that's why, like, it's annoying that it makes sense why it's like that. Because, I mean, it's annoying. But it's still a shitty skin, so I was like, whatever. He got the Kiana skin. Yeah, but the Kiana skin's good. Okay, no. Naturalize. Are you gonna tell me that this skin is as good as a Kiana skin? That this is as good as a Kiana skin? Motherfucker, this is just a pre-arm. This is literally just a pre-arm. And also, for the Kiana skin, I didn't have to spend to get the Kiana skin. Because you just use the equivalent of Stellar Jades for the skin. You don't have to actually use money for it. So it actually doesn't even, it feels even better. Not even SS2. Okay. Fork up an SS2 would be like 300. Yeah, like around like 300 pounds for the skin if I wanted SS2. And that's if I'm lucky, by the way. That's not even guaranteed. Actually, the free to play. Okay. I'm like free to play plus in Impact Thirds. I've never said I'm completely free to play in Impact Thirds. Okay, but regardless. Okay. Okay, sure. You know what? Let me not talk too much because otherwise, when this is gonna take like forever to actually complete. Oh my god. So I did 3.1, 3.0, 3.1. Did I even talk about the Wolfram? There's no reason to talk about the Wolfram, right? It was an event. We took care of Chimeras, and we were raised some Chimeras, right? That's all that really happened here. Back to the YouTube channel. No. Wait. Surely I don't have to like resort to it. Oh god, 3.2 is long. Okay, I may have to. What the fuck happened in 3.2? Uh Oh, that's what happened in 3.2. I remember what happened in 3.2 now. I think. Yeah, no, I remember what happened now. Okay. Okay, so I guess let's go back to let's say talking about the Amphoreus story. Okay. So yeah, 3.1 was essentially, Chibius's and Maide's, story, right? And, further developing them and, Maide upholding becoming the demigod of strife, right? So, yay, we completed one journey, right? But, Arnix is dead. So someone needs to do someone needs to become the crusher of time. And, we, at the end of 3.2, we say, oh, let us try to, complete the trial of time and become the demigod of time, right? Since there's really no one else, right? So like, and Aglaya goes like, sure, I mean, go ahead, right? Uh, you can try and do the trial, right? And literally 3.2 immediately starts with going into the trial and, actually starting the trial. And we actually do meet Oryx inside the trial. I mean, obviously we meet Oryx inside the trial because it's literally their trial. And we're essentially told that, oh, you can become the demigod of time. One small problem. You're kind of dead. And we essentially end up learning that when we came into Amphoreus in the car with Dan Hung, and after we got, attacked by the spear, by Nikodo's spear, yeah, that kind of killed us. And the only reason we're alive is because we've been, let's say, like surrounded by, like, say, like kind of like a weave of time, right? That's kind of like kept us alive, right? And Oryx tells us that your trial to become the demigod of time is that you have to basically bring yourself back to life, right? That we have to find our soul. And I think the only clue that we get told about where our soul is that it's with death, I think. Yeah, I believe that's what we're told, right? That it's with death. And so, we kind of come out and we, tell everyone that, you know, we do be kind of dead. And all right, we also got told that we have, I believe, 12 days until the connection to our soul gets completely cut off. And if that does happen, then we do kind of like die. So we have a time limit until we don't die, right? So good luck, essentially, is the thing, right? And so this technically, acts as motivation for acts as motivation to find Thanatos, right? And it's kind of clear on who the next Titan we're going to go after is, right? We're obviously going to go after Thanatos, the Death Titan, right? Because where else would someone's soul be, if not with the Death Titan? Yeah, because this is let's see. Yeah, because this is us, like, just going to the trial. Yeah, this is us parting in the trial and then being told by Oryx that, oh yeah, we're kind of dead. Um, and in the meantime, while this is happening, the whole Canis plotline is also, like, let's say, progressing at the same time, in the sense that she's kind of sick and tired of us. Well, sick and tired of Aglaya and the rest of the Crisis Edge journey, right? Because they don't believe in the Era Novae, right? That they believe in the Era Crissia, if I recall, that's what it's called. Basically, the time before when they were already prosperous, they don't believe that they need to keep going forward to Genesis because, there's no guarantee that the Era Nova is actually going to make them, I guess, wealthy. Well, not really wealthy, right? But it's not going to give them what they want. So rather than going to a time where they don't know if it actually gives them what they want, they should essentially regress back to when they had what they had, right? So essentially, it's like, oh, Aglaya and the Council of Elders are essentially like water and oil. They don't mix at all. And so, to let's say question Aglaya's authority, and since currently Aglaya is the one that's running Okima, and which route Okima takes, Kindness basically starts to move pieces, and let's say seems to be more or less staging a revolt, right, against Aglaya, right? So that's kind of like what's happening at the same time. All right, I forgot to mention this. I guess after we told everyone that we're dead. Castor essentially confirms it, right? Because she remembers that back in the Grove of Epiphany in 3.1, when we fought the Flame Reaver, when Castor was attacked by the Flame Reaver and then was pushed back, we did grab her, right? And prevent her from like falling. And although that was like quickly happened and no one really noticed, Castor did notice that because technically she can't touch anyone, right? And she thought that okay, maybe that since since we are from beyond the sky, maybe we're like exempt to the rule, right? But then after telling her, it's like after telling her that we're dead, it's like, oh, that's why you could touch me, not because let's say you're special or anything, but because you're already dead. So she basically promises to help us, you know, basically bring us back to whole, right? Back to live and well, right? So yeah, that's I guess kind of like acts as Castor's motivation to help us do everything, right? And the only thing we know is what was the reference of this thing again? Hold up. All right, all right. And since Castor is from Castor is from Idonia, but we don't know where Styxia is, which was a place where I think Thylacine resided, but currently they're not aware. But they have this story, which is about a queen, a queen who had her daughter who died, and then the queen wanted to resurrect the daughter, but to do this, she like I think relied on an alchemist who then did manage to bring her daughter back to life, but then the daughter turned into an evil dragon, which then attacked Styxia, and so the queen had to get her army to fight against the dragon, and they managed to fend off the dragon, and the queen wanted to save her daughter. So after they fended off the dragon, the queen cut open the dragon's stomach and pulled out her daughter, but her daughter was already dead. So that was kind of like the story of Styxia. So that was kind of like the story of Styxia. So cast sex is real because we're dads. Yeah, kinda. Yeah, we can have like a good time with Cass. You just have to remember that technically it's necrophilia, right? Because we're dead. But then again, I guess technically Cass is also to. I mean, no, Cass isn't dead. I mean, I guess there's no real issue, right? So yeah. So that's the story of Styxia, right? And that story, let's say, doesn't really, let's say, you don't at this point you don't really understand the story until later on when you learn more about, let's say, Styxia and start to learn more about the true nature of the Titans, right? And that's like midway in 2.1. But we essentially have a goal right now for 2.2 is, I'm sorry, not 2.2, 3.2 is find Thalaton, bring us back to life or we're gonna die, and somehow they'll deal with Canis, who, wants to usurp the Flame Chase journey. And the way that we learn that, we'll kind of learn more that what she's doing is because she starts, bringing her soldiers to, let's say, to try and, manipulate some of the members, to vote for her, right? One of the persons she tries to do this is with Dan Hung, but that's in a bit. So that's what's happening with, let's say, Cast Stories and Us, right? At the same time, we know that from the end of 3.1, Jesus Christ, so many numbers, that Anaxa is also dying, right? Because he forcefully ripped a part of his soul out so he could put in the core flame of reason into him, to protect it against the Flame Reaver, right? But because he did this, he kind of like also sentenced himself to death, right? So we essentially learned that he coincidentally also has around 12 days left to live, right? Kind of like similar to us, right? It's a coincidence, right? That, same time frame, right? And since essentially Anaxion's in this like kind of like half death state, right? He's able to wander. He's kind of like able to get an insight into the undead, right? Into the underworld, right? Into where all of the other dead also go once a day, right? Because the way it's meant to be is that once someone dies, the spirit is then taken to the, let's say, quote unquote, River Styx, where then they are sentenced by Thalaton into the afterlife, right? That's how it's meant to be. However, what is curious is that when Anaxa is in the state, he's curious to see that there's a lot of, let's say, people that are just wandering about, right? When technically they really shouldn't be wandering around, right? They should be all going to Thanaton, right? To essentially get sentenced and to the afterlife. And so like Anaxa is like starting to, let's say, question what is happening, right? Like he's like starting to question things, right? So he's like becomes kind of like aware that something is happening. That something has happened that he's not too sure of, right? So he wants to, let's say, like track it down, right? But essentially what he realizes is that okay, he also needs to somewhat find Thanatos, the Death Titan, right? And this, I think, is at this point is when we're introduced to this fucker. Yep, this is when we're actually introduced to Ligerus. I think that's his full name, Ligerus, right? Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Lycurgus, sorry. This is where we're introduced to Lycurgus, who we call Ligerus, and he acts as, let's say, kind of like a neutral party in Okima, right? Because he acts as the Theros, which is meant to be the role of essentially like an observer, right? He's meant to observe and record everything that's happened, right? Or everything that's happening. So he's not really meant to, let's say, get involved in things or, meant to take sides. But, just look at this fucker. He looks suspicious. Like, we immediately see that he looks suspicious, right? So, unless you're, let's say, naive, everyone should immediately think there's more to this fuck, isn't there, right? Especially because, he has a unique design, right? Because we haven't, in Okima, in Amphoreus so far, yeah, we've seen Titans, we've seen Dromuses, we've seen Chimeras, we've seen the people. We haven't exactly seen another mech, right? Supposedly they're called an Antikytherican or something like that, right? And they're actually a race in Amphoreus. But we never really see anyone else that's supposedly also this race. So it's kind of like, do we really believe what he's saying? But essentially, the reason why he's here is because he's, let's say, acting as a messenger from Kindness, right? That she wants to speak with Ligers, and so that she wants to speak with Anaxa, and that they will meet at the Dawn Cloud Pavilion, which is basically just underneath where the altar to Kefle is, right? So essentially, they're gonna have a talk. Nax is gonna talk with Kindness, right? And I guess while we're doing this, we learn a bit more about Anaxa, right? That he's a blasphemer, that his beliefs are literally the opposite of what the Grove of Epiphany thinks, right? That he's very much a quote unquote a free thinker in that sense, right? Because he doesn't believe in the Titans, he doesn't believe in the Crisis journey. What he wants, what the core of his research is wants to be is like, what are the Titans, right? Specifically, he wants to know what or who was the first Nucesporus, if I believe that's the name, right? Essentially, kind of like the chicken and the egg. Which came first, right? And who was first? Essentially, it's kind of like a very simple way to, try and see like what an actor wants, right? And I guess essentially this is just him talking with Calypso about like everything that's happening, of how Calypso questions him, or like why is he so different, right? Of why doesn't he let it like kind of like conform, right? And I guess Cersei's, or yeah, I guess Cersei's herself, because the recent Titan is also interested, right? Of like, what's happening, right? And while we, let's say, is this the part when we go up here? Alright, then like we learn more about Anaxa, like Anaxa and his teacher, right? And basically of how Anaxa opened up to his teacher of him, like basically interested in, the topics of that not everyone else was interested in. Of what he wanted to, look into was basically something that would end up being him being called a blasphemer, right? So that's essentially what's happening in this section. So yeah, and then he ends up meeting Kindness, right? The bitch. And essentially, Kindness basically tells him that in the next grand meeting, right, when all of the people who came up make a vote on what's going to happen next, for him to side with her, right? Because an axe is kind of like can go either way, right? And so she says that one way to, let's say, persuade him is that she will let him, go to all the way to Kefle's altar, which is kind of meant to be like, a forbidden area, right? So that he can, because she knows that Anaxa wants to go there because he kind of like wants to check something, right? So Anaxa essentially goes, very well, we can kind of like use each other, essentially, right? Because that's essentially what they're doing, right? They're just using each other. And we learned that in the voting area, that Kefle's core flame is kept here, right? That it's hidden behind some seals, but that it is basically kind of in the open. But because it's kind of in the open, it's also safe at the same time, right? Because everyone can see it. So if like someone's acting sussy around it, they're going to be very easy to spot out, right? And so, yeah. So Anaxa decides, okay, we'll work together. And so Anaxa goes to basically climbs the stairs to go to Kefle's altar, right? And while he's climbing the stairs, he sees kind of like apparitions, kind of like memory fragments of people. And specifically, he sees a memory fragments of Nias and Calypso. However, he obviously doesn't know who Nias is, right? Because he wasn't there for the 3.0 stuff. But he recognizes Calypso, and then when he asks Cersei's if they can see, what he's seeing, they tell him no. So like at this point, Anaxa starts to, get an idea of how exactly the Titans work, right? And the core flames, what's the actual connection, right? And the more he goes up, the more he starts to understand of like what's actually happening, right? And finally, when he gets to the top, he sees a scene where Niles and Calypso are talking, but then he also sees a scene where a young girl's also talking with them, right? Called Pelixia. And they're like talking about like what's like gonna happen, of how they're also in the flame chase journey, right? Of how they're also after the different titans, right? After the different core flames. And then what's the most important part here is not that, they're having to talk right and here, right? Or that Nice is here or that Plix is here. The most important part in this point is, doesn't she appear here? No, okay, no, maybe it appears later on. But essentially, what happens here is that Anaxa more or less figures out or has an assumption of the relationship between the Titans and the Core Flames under the Crisis Airs. And essentially, it's that it the Flame Chase journey kind of acts like an inheritance journey, right? Where a Crisis Air, in one way or another, gets the Divine Core Flame from said Titan, and they become the demigod of said Titan, right? For example, Aglai got the core flame of romance, so she became the demigod of romance, right? And the way the system works is that once everyone has the core flame, and final when the crisis of the world bearer gets the core flame and starts the era nova, the titans of the new world are the demigods of the previous worlds, which is why Nias, who was the demigod of strife, ended up becoming Nikador in the current world. The same with Calypso and how Calypso becomes Circe's, right? And as a result of that is that, or one of the results of that is that they forget their past lives, essentially, right? Which is the reason as to why Calypso wasn't aware of why Circe's wasn't aware of why you know of her past, right? Or she didn't know the speaking between her, Nias, and Polixia. And the only reason why she chose to name Calypso in the start of 3.1 was because it felt like she had let's say familiarity with it. Can I get cliff notes of your cliff notes? Well, my cliff notes are all in my head. So unless you want to open my head up and scoop out my cliff notes from my head, uh, yeah, because this is all essentially, literally, coming from me remembering stuff on the buy, and I think I'm more or less remember everything. Take your arms, core. Are you trying to kill me, you fuck? No, 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 no. You can take my core flame. Oh, whatever. When do I give you permission to do so? I guess I'll give you permission to do so after Genshin goes EOS. If Genshin ever goes EOS, then you can take it. Then you can take it. Soon, shut the fuck up. You know Genshin is now going EOS. That game is now going to EOS. It's that game has made way too much money, and it's too, let's say, too prominent to EOS. Because, yep, that game is way too prominent to ever EOS. I mean, the only thing that might make, let's say, Genshin EOS is if they, bring out a new engine and then call it Genshin 2, but it's essentially still Genshin. All right, speaking of 2, there was a rumor that in 2026, apparently League is gonna get a major system update, like with a new engine and like client and shit. I kind of want them to do that because Jesus Christ, the League client is dog shit. Also, the engine is dog shit. And technically, Riot could always do that, right? Because Riot do have that Tencent money, but uh, I mean, they've tried to fix the client so many times, and each time it gets worse. So maybe they just need a complete overhaul. Hopefully. Well, regardless, where were we? Where were we? So we spoke about, yeah, we spoke about what the Titans were essentially, and what Anaxa more or less has figured out so far. And in the meantime, all right, this is like what's also happening at the same time, right? So while the Trailblazer is like on the journey to find themselves with Castors, Dan Hunk isn't, let's say, like slouching, right? He's not really the type of person to just sit about, right? So he's essentially being kind of like, let's say, getting lessons from Hyacin and kind of like learning the ways of what was it called again? Basically learning how to basically control or manipulate water in Amphoreus. Kind of lots of plots. Are we dead and sex with Cass? Almost. Almost. We're almost well, I mean we're dead already, but sex with Cass doesn't come until technically like 3 hours, technically. Then we have like sex with Cass. Kinda. Although we have sex with the dragon, technically, but okay, so yeah, essentially, this is just Dan Hung basically saying that he wants to learn more about things, and it works with Hyacinth to learn to essentially explore a bit more, right? Because maybe we can find more clues to find Thalaton and Stixia. Because then we still don't know where the hell um uh where the hell Stixia is, right? But at the same time, he also finds an accept of the people who try to go to the sky, right? Because they'll sooner or later need to go to the sky, right, to fight Aquila, right? Because Aquila is one of the titans that they need to deal with, right? So that's kind of like mentioned again to make sure not to forget about that Aquila exists. So this like learning a bit more about like the Black Tide and trying to see, try and find information essentially, right? And I think is this where that fuck group appears? All right, like this is more like, let's say, gives you more information about the crisis as, right? Let's see. I think this is, yeah, this is essentially about how basically they need to get to Styxia, essentially, right? This is all about the imperative of Styxia. And I think this is where Anaxa essentially talks to Castorus, because Castorus also wants to find Thanatos. So Styxia is the Death City. Yeah, Styxia is the Death City where Styxia is the Death City where Hycelens technically comes from, right? Well, she doesn't specifically comes from Styxia, but she is related to it, right? But that doesn't matter too much later on, right? So yeah, so this is where Naxa basically talks to Castorus and essentially gets her to join him in working with kindness, because um they he's basically doing his part so he can get Kindness's help, right? To find the Death Titan, right? And so this is where they have like the grand meeting, the grand assembly to decide Forest's Okima's future, right? Where Anax's base Kindness is basically saying, to hell with the crisis, to hell with the Flame Chase journey. We don't have any, let's say, assurances that the Aeronova is good. Instead, we should remember the past and go to the Aerocrisia, I believe that's what it's called, to where our glory was, right? And, essentially it's kind of stupid, right? Because, this is all kind of, ignoring the fact that the Black Tide is literally choking Amphoreus to death, right? So, Kindness's plan is very stupid. Because Kindness's plan doesn't have no safeguards to fight against the Black Tide, right? So, yeah. Who is Kindness? Kindness is the bitch. Where is she? Huh. You know the bitch who, kind of like wants Aglaya dead? Yeah, huh. And so, since, you know, since it's kind of like a debate, Aglaya chooses not to, let's say, lead the debate for, her side, because, let's say, not a lot of the people, kind of, let's say, see eye to her, because a lot of the people can't really relate to her since she's been a demigod, she's been alive for I think nearly a millennia, right? And in that time she's like lost her emotions, right? So she can't, let's say, wouldn't really be the best, to debate, right? So she basically asks Fine and to take charge and debate, you know, to get people to vote for the Flame Chase journey. And so, the debate happens, each side brings a point, Fine and brings his very much colorful language, I guess kind of like colorful language. And it essentially comes down to a standstill, right? It kind of comes like down to a standstill, and in the end, Anax is the one who has to choose is the final vote whether to side with Kindness or to side with Aglaya. And to everyone's surprise, not really. He sides with Aglaya with the Flame Chase journey, right? Because Anax is not stupid enough to, like, after he realizes, learns the truth about the Titans and the crisis S, he's not stupid enough. He is smart enough to realize that this is really the only way forward, right? Like, not fulfilling the crisis air journey pretty much leads to everyone's death. She's waiting for Rover. I don't know about that. Kevin is important, I just can't prove it. Well, it's to do with, let's say, the prophecy, right? Because I don't know if at this time the prophecy has already been spoken about, right? For the world bearing Titan. But we know that a prophecy that Chibi got, that the deliverer, the one who will uptake Kefle, will be the silver head. Basically, the deliverer will be, born at a later time, and they know that Aglaya knows that Finan is the deliverer. It's just that he himself has to, grow to that stage. So essentially, Aglaya is also kind of like giving Finan the opportunities to nurture himself to get to that point, right? I can't remember if that prophecy is already spoken about at this point. I think it's mentioned when Chibi and Aglaya talk with each other, but I don't think it's like, too gone into depth at this point. But yeah, so they kind of have a vote, and this is more, going into more detail of, the story of Sixia, right? Specifically, this is Polixia, right? Who, I guess, was or I guess is Thalaton right now, but who was the crisis at before in the previous, I guess, era. And essentially, this is kind of like her also going over the story rights about the dragon and the Styxia rights, which then kind of tells like the story of Styxia is like very very kind of like old, right? But this is also kind of like not just talking about that, right? Because this is also kind of alluding to something later on, right? Don't worry, Yishuan will join them in the final battle and take care of it. I mean, with those stars, Yishuan probably could, to be honest. Dragon, who's Polixia? Polixia is the girl that we saw here. The girl who spoke with Nias. That it is like this girl. This girl who was the crisis heir of death in the past, and then ends up becoming Thanatos, right? Yeah, the thing about the sisters is like learned afterwards, right? Oh, here it is when we learn it. Yeah, here's where we learn it, right? Where Polixia, where we learn about what the ritual for, or what the trial for the Death Titan is, right? That someone has to be, that of the two sisters, one must be sacrificed to, you know, to complete the trial, right? To complete the trial of death. And here's where we learn that, who Polixia's sister actually is. And bum 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 bum, we learn that, her sister is, well, it doesn't show it here, right? But we learn that her sister is essentially Castor's, right? That Castor is her sister, which kind of then meant that it's like the Soul Stone from Avengers. Yeah, it's very much similar, right? To get the Soul Stone, one must be sacrificed, right? And how the same way of how Thanos, not Thanos, Thanos killed, oh my god, what the fuck was her name? Well, Thanos killed his daughter, and have how Hawkeye killed Black Widow, right? For when each of them went for the Soul Stone, right? Did Hawkeye kill Black Widow? No. What the fuck was the Hawkeye thing again? Yeah, no. Black Widow had to die for Hawkeye to get the thing. Yeah. So it's essentially kind of like similar mechanics, right? And yeah, so the big surprise was that Castors was technically from the previous times, but Castors is here. So how does that work? And then when Castors finds out this information, Castors is like, she doesn't have any, like, let's say, knowledge of this, right? She doesn't recognize Polixia of anything, right? So it's kind of like, it's kind of like weird. I think she appears here. Yeah, this like when it's when she appears, right? So it's kind of like, what exactly is it, right? Didn't Polixia lose her memories? Polixia will have lost her memories once she became the Titan, right? I guess it's a bit like, let's say, jumping forward, right? But it doesn't matter, right? But the thing that Polixia did the moment Polixia became Thanatos is as a way to, because she didn't like the ritual, caused, the death of her sister. She made it so that once she became Thanatos, she brought Castorus back to life. But as a result of this, because she had to bring her back to life, Castorus ended up getting that curse that she has, where people can't, the curse of death, essentially, right? And because Castorus already died, and then was brought back to life, and the way Polixia did this was by essentially kind of like halving Castor's soul, right? And so Castor came back to life, but with no memories of Polexia or the past or anything, right? And that's essentially how Castor's essentially came to be. Obviously, that technically learned a bit later, but we essentially have a rough idea of like everyone now knows a rough idea of like how exactly the Titans work, right? And so now the goal is that we have to somehow get to um we somehow have to get to what should we call it, to Sexia. And to do that we will need someone's help. But before that someone appears, Castor is essentially kind of like starts to reminisce, if that makes sense, right? Because we essentially end up learning, since now we more or less somewhat know how, I guess, Castor's came to be. What we now learn is what Castor's life developed after everything, right? And we learn that Castor's was adopted by Amunet, who is from Idonia, and the people of Idonia essentially worshipped death, right? Yeah, they essentially worshipped death. And once they saw that, Castor's essentially had the death aura, and they saw her as someone that was blessed by Thanatos, right? So they made her the Holy Maiden of Idonia. And so basically, all the people in Idonia thought that if Castor's basically granted them sweet relief, or essentially killed them, it was as if they were being blessed by Thanatos themselves, right? And so essentially, we learned that Castor's whole life, specifically her childhood, she was essentially surrounded by death, right? Even though she didn't understand why this all happened. She said, I see now, and became T0. Yep, essentially, she became the certified T0 character 3.0 or 3.x. Like, Jesus Christ, she has been T0 since 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7. She has been T0 for 6 patches, by the way. What the fuck? Holy, she's probably gonna still be T0 for like another 3 patches, more or less, right? It's actually been insane of how strong of a character Castors has ended up being. And I guess with the release of Hyacinth, like it just even made her stronger, and the same thing with Evernight, right? She just got stronger and stronger. But yeah, so essentially we learned stuff more about like, Idonia and Castors, right? And of how basically everyone essentially died, right? And then because of this, because of like let's say this fate that she has, is why she's also, I guess, motivated to find Thanatos, right? Because she wants to find Thanatos to get rid of this essentially curse slash blessing. Because she doesn't want it. She can't live the life that she wants to, right? Because she has to live in fear of others, and others have to live in fear of her, right? She got the Yishuan treatment. Yeah, I guess Yishuan has been Cicero for like a long time. Can't save this anymore. Nah, not really. And this is also where we got the this, right. The where is it? You know what? I should probably also watch some of the things, specifically the animated shorts, right? While we're doing this. Because I don't think before this there was any animated shorts. No, no. Because essentially, from this is where like this props up, right? Because it's like literally plays in between, right? This will be the bitch. Do you know how long this recap is going to be if I actually splice this all together? But yeah, this is kind of like Castor's uh story, right? Also, like also a nice video. This one, and especially now with all the, I guess by this point, you have enough context for this, right? Of why this all happens.
Get it over with. End its suffering.
We really want to understand it now.
Only you can grant them peace.
I would say even without, let's say, the 3.2 context, you can somewhat understand this already, right? Because before 3.2, you're already given, let's say, an idea of what type of character Castor is, right? What is it about again? What the animated shorts?
Embrace death.
It's basically just showing her past, right? Of what she went through, of what she wanted to, what she wanted. And I guess you could say that this symbolism is kind of be symbolic about Castor's herself, right? Of how Castor's died in the previous era, and then afterwards she was reborn, right? In the new era. With, you know, the old deer and then the new deer and the younger deer at the end. Mm-hmm. And then this is when Castor started her journey. To find Thanatos.
Is that you, Castorus?
And the little girl has become old.
All of them have gone, heeding death's summon, crossing into their domain. I must
They move about.
But big sister Castorus, your hands are so warm. Just like anyone else's. So go on. Don't hold back. Give
This is like probably the best part of this video. Like this next parts. Yeah, like when it transitions to this, like, ooh. Yeah, like, this section is like, the piano and the strings. Ooh. Yeah.
Can hands like these really be warm?
Damn it. Yeah. Yeah, and this is like how speaking of like this can be like a representative of casters now, right? Well, with like the context, right? All right, I was gonna say that in the last area of Amphoreus, like after you complete 3.7, that you can actually see, you know, Castor's Polixia and the little girl who died, right? And the little girl in the animated shorts. But I didn't realize that they actually kind of like move about. Like it's been like each day or maybe like after a while, like they change positions and not like with different people. I didn't know that they did that, but apparently they do change move about, which is interesting, but it doesn't help me like it doesn't help me right now, essentially. But it's fine. Okay. Okay, so that's the animated show that we end up getting shown. The day. Oh, essentially, what you can kind of say is that the day which dies, like here, that you can kind of like say that the symbolism is that the day here and then the day at the end can kind of be seen as how Castor has died in the previous era, in the like the pre not in, yeah, kind of like in the previous era, and then was reborn right in the after the era nova of the previous Titans, right? One day Cyrene will be back on the Express. Very, there's a possibility, right? Because I want to say I'm more or less certain that there will be a continuation to Amphoreus, right? Because while the Amphoreus storyline did finish, it does have, let's say, we kind of know that it will continue afterwards, right? Because Amphoreus is like being created like Amphoreus is actually being created. You know, the stuff with Fully and the Asanavara, the child of Asanavara, right? Stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of like where this section ends. And this is then where we meet our other Crisis member, the good old cat girl. And this is where we end up coming across Cyphera. Where is she? Yeah, here's it. This is the time we meet Cypher, right? Because Cypher knows how to get to Styxia, and Aglaya basically made a deal with her to get us to Styxia, right? And so essentially, you know, we basically meet her, and you know, this is like where they make the agreement. The guy makes the agreement with Cypher. You know, Cypher basically tells us that, okay, that all she's gonna do is basically take us there and essentially just gonna not do too much, right? At most, she'll be, let's say, keeping watch, right? But not to rely on her. And then we get this small scene where she acts as the Flash. Right. Oh, I just realized I should do this. Okay. Yeah. And we kind of like see a bit about how her power works, where her power seems to be somewhat related to the coin, right? Because obviously when she uses her power, you know, she flips the coin, right? What is her ability? Who, Cypher's? Cypher's ability is essentially, her being able to do what she believes she can do. So kind of like, if she thinks she can do this, she can do this, right? So, yeah. Although I guess the downside of the power is that if she thinks something that she can't do, or she believes that there's something that she can't do, she won't be able to do it, right? Or she believes that the enemy can do something, that enemy will do that, right? And so it's something that can backfire on her essentially. So that's like kind of like the tricky thing about her power. Even though her power does sound stupidly broken, it does have its flaws, right? So it's kind of like based on lies, and if the I mean, this kind of like skipping like stuff to like 3.4, but 3.3, but I'm assuming that another downside to her power is that if someone, let's say, spots her lie, the effect of her power will essentially end, right? Which is the reason why she left Okima, right? And she couldn't say besides Aglaya after, you know, the stuff with the Dawn device. Yeah, at this point in time, Cypher's already the demigod of chicory. She's already gotten Zygurus's core flame. And I think it stated that Zygurus gave it to her, but we don't know like why or anything like that, right? We just know that she's already the demigod of chicory. But we are now in Styxia, the land of the dead, the old I guess kingdom which I guess kind of like worship Fagosa, but you know that's no longer a thing. And so we're gonna go basically going around to basically try and figure things out and see if we can actually find how to find Thanatos, right? And the one thing we notice at the moment we come here is that there's a lot of souls of the dead basically wandering around Sixia, which is kind of like, why? They shouldn't. The dead belong dead. I mean, the dead belong in the underworld. They don't belong in the living, right? That's essentially kind of what's happening. So there's yeah, something is clearly wrong, right? And so the more we go forward, the more we kind of find out that Thanatos isn't doing what they're meant to be doing, right? Because what Thanatos' his role is meant to be, you know, like I said earlier, it's meant to carry the dead onto the afterlife. But if the dead aren't being sent to the afterlife, clearly Thanatos isn't doing the role that they're meant to be doing, right? So something's most likely wrong with Thanatos, the Death Titan. So we got a bit more further and further, learning more about things, right? A bit more about Styxia, about we see like there's like Black Tide also here, right? which is kind of like, it's kind of like suspicious, right? And I think the more we move through Styxia, the closer we start to get to Thanatos, right? Specifically, if I recall, Castor's does? Hold up. Let me check something very quickly, just to refreshing myself, because 3.2 was 6 months ago. Um, I guess Castor's, learns that in 6 year there seems to be a kind of like a stranded dragon, right? Specifically it's Netherwing, right? That it's stranded in kind of in 6 year, and it shouldn't really be here, right? Because it should be with Thanos in the Netherworld. So it's kind of like, I guess she knows this, but she, let's say, hasn't resolved it yet. That she will end up taking that dragon to fly down to the Netherworld to find Thanatos, right? But that's something that happens in a bit actually. It actually doesn't take that happen that far after this. So we meet more of the dads. I think. Uh, is the Flame Reaver back in 3.2? I don't think the Flame Reaver is back in 3.2, right? It comes back in 3.3, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so essentially, Castle is essentially kind of like going through a trial, right? Because they can kind of treat this as Castor's trial of death, right? Of her accepting it and, becoming the demigod of death, traveling through Styxia to basically get the resolve to do it, right? And I guess the last bit of, let's say, encouragement that she gets is from Maide, right? Someone who's already become a demigod, right? Yeah. But at this point, she's already, let's say, ready for it, right? Is he dead or is he just a hologram? Uh he's technically dead here, but because of the way his curse works, he'll basically come back to life, right? That's why he's here. But he'll essentially come back to life, right? So he's temporarily dead, but gonna come back to life. Right? And that's the same reason why Trian appears, right? Because Trian is also dead. But the reason why Trian, appears here is because, Thanos is like, something's wrong with Thanos, right? But essentially, this is all about Castor is essentially kind of like getting. I mean, I'm just repeating myself here, right? She's getting the resolve to do what she needs to do, and yeah, so she ends up being resolved, but also at this point understands what will happen, right? Once she moves forward, right? She understands that once she moves forward, she won't be able to come back. That her taking the role of Thanatos, the Death Titan, means that she will have to, do the role of Thanatos, right? Which is to guide the dead. And the only way for her to really guide the dead is by being in the underworld. So she will basically separate from everyone, right? To become Thanatos, which, she ends up making her mind right. The final trial is, I guess, meeting Polix, not meeting Polixia, but yeah, finding Pollux, which is basically the remnants of the dragon, and then beating the dragon to awaken it and fly off into the. Why the fuck did I take a break here? The hell's wrong with me? And then flying off into the underworld with it, right? Because all right. I guess this is the other thing, that the reason why I've literally put this, that the reason why Pollux is here in the first place is because um in the past of how Polixia, Castor's sister, had to kill her for her to ascend. The way that was done is that Polixia used the Netherwind to essentially fly Castor's from the Netherworld into the world of the living. That's essentially how it was, right? That's why Pollux is here in the first place. So essentially, she's gonna go back the way she came, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so by doing this, she will reunite with Polixia, even though Polixia knows Castor's, but Castor's at this point still doesn't know Polixia, right? Because she doesn't have those memories. Why is he stuck in an egg? That is a good question. I actually don't know why he's stuck in an egg. Maybe you can argue there's like a sort of symbolism, right? To show how there's like a fraction life and death, right? But yeah, this is basically in the underworlds where Polixia is like residing. But the reason why Polixia couldn't, as Thanatos couldn't, let's say, fulfill her role, is because essentially half of her power is in Castor's, right? Because she had to give up half of her power to bring Castor's back to life. And so now that Castor's is here to hold the mantle of death and become the Titan of Death, the Thanatos will once again be whole, essentially, right? Let's see, what happens with the next again? I guess before I guess the next let's say goes right, because the next is also dying, but for Anaxa, um, it's not like he's trying to prevent himself from dying, because he's more or less kind of achieved what he wanted, right? Because he found out about, let's say, like the truth about the Titans. But at the same time, by doing this, he also fulfilled Cersei's trial, right? Because the trial that Cersei gave him was to essentially find the answer to his question, right? To the question that he had. And since he did that, he also, passed the trial for him to become the demigod of reason, right? And I guess this is just Anaxa giving Finan essentially like a pep talk, right? Since he's not going to leave, and essentially kind of like giving him his, like, telling Finan what he needs to know, right? And basically telling him to get his shit together. Is this one it is? Oh, okay. I kind of like jumped the gun, my bad. Because that's how I said that, Anaxa was the last, the final vote of whether to go with kindness or the Finan, right? It's actually here's when it happens, right? Like here's when like he gets approval about everything, right? And makes a decision on what he should vote for. Right. After getting the confirmation from Anaxa. I mean, and after Anaxa got the confirmation of Castorus about Polixia. I thought the sister. What is he voting? Oh, this is where the people are voting whether to side with Kindness and not go after the Aranova, or side with Aglaya and go for the Aranova. And he's essentially decided to go with Aglaya, right? And the reason why this is important is because he essentially got more or less proof that Polixia actually was a thing, right? And so everything he saw was real. Thereby meaning, proving his theory right, and the crisis journey being like the only thing that they can actually do. And kind of gets pissed because she lost, and everyone is supportive of the Aeronova once again. And essentially, Kindness kind of has like a hissy fit here because she lost, and essentially pretty much says, "There's you haven't seen the last of me." That's essentially what she says, that they haven't seen the last of her, right? That she will get her revenge. And then this is where now Castorus is the demigod of death. She now is a demigod of death, meaning that she has to stay in the underworld. The sister pep talk is long, right? I mean, literally, it's like I like skip some of it, right? But I mean, actually, it's not that long. This is the pep talk. Yeah, this is pep talk. It's not really that long, right? But yeah, she killed her off screen. Wait, killed who off screen? But Alexia, no, it's more like I mean, I guess yeah, right. I guess technically yeah, in a sense, right? Because Pelixia gave her core flame to Castorus, right? So I guess technically she got killed off screen, but not really, right? But yeah, so this is now that Castorus is the demigod of death. She's able to return our soul back to us, right? So we don't die, right? And one thing that, let's say, happens here is that in order for, let's say, for this to be successful, we have to, let's say, avoid the temptation of death, right? Because what we've learned is that death is very, like, very sweet, right? How are we there? Castorus calls us here. She basically summons us here, right? Because now she has like dominion over the netherworld. And yeah. And the last thing that we have to do is basically get out of this area without basically falling for the temptation of sweet release. So we have to keep moving. And the reason why this scene happens, because you know how this scene happens. Where is it? Yeah. This scene where Akron randomly appears, where it's kind of like out of nowhere. The reason why this happened is because casters use some of our memories to basically prevent us from looking back at death and to basically move on forwards. That's the only reason we saw Akron. It's not that Akron was actually here. It's just like a memory of Akron, if that makes sense. Or like an image of Akron that Caster has made for us to prevent us from, looking for death or staying with death. Until now, we're back to life. Oh, well, we're no longer nearly dead. And so Anax is like basically essentially done, right? He's completed his goal about the Titans, so and since he's also completed his trial, he can become the demigod of reason, but since he's also gonna die, he's able to give up his core flame for the he's able to light up the Cersei's flame, right? And yeah, so that's essentially where 3.2 ends, right? We've completed the trial of reason and we've completed the trial of death. So we're +2 now. So now all we're missing is the core flame of Sky and the core flame of the world bearing. We're only missing 2 now, right? Because since we're also back to life, that means we also passed the trial of time. Since the trial of time was, for us to, prevent our own death. And since we managed to prevent it, we're technically +3, not +2. We're +3 in 3.2. And the last thing where it ends is we see a scene in the Astral Express and we see that Marge is kind of getting covered in ice. She's kind of becoming a popsicle. So, yeah, things don't be looking too well. Things don't be looking too well for March. Oh, no, there's one more scene here. Oh, my bad. I guess the actual final scene here is Hertha. Since, there's more, she's starting to realize that, okay, Amphoreus seems to be very important about everything that's happening, right? Especially since in those memo snatches that tried to, invade her memories, Amphoreus was very much prevalent in their minds, right? So she with the help of well, not with the help, right? So she makes like a quick and dirty tries to invade Amphoreus, right? Like chance to project herself into Amphoreus. And she kind of does, but she can't, let's say, get too much, right? Because she can see kind of like images. And when she tries to try and get into Amphoreus, she ends up meeting Ligus. And yeah, I guess in 3.2 itself is like where you kind of see that Ligus is very, very sus, right? Because I'm pretty sure Ligus here says that he's also like a past rider of erudition, right? That he's also a emanator of erudition, so that even if let's say her to try to brute force her way in, she wouldn't be able to, because it would be basically mutual destruction if they try to fight each other, right? Yeah, just like you I have basked in the gaze of erudition, right? Essentially saying that he's also a emanator, right? So the mutual destruction is inevitable if they try to fight each other. She should hurt him and know him. No. Because let's say he's also nominated doesn't mean she'd also know him, right? Because he could have been seen by news when without anyone knowing, right? What does Erudition want? Well, Erudition wants if I recall, Erudition essentially kind of like basically wants to know everything, right? So it's running calculations about stuff that will happen, right? So essentially, all Erudition wants to know is be a nerd. And yeah, that's definitely what Erudition wants in a simplistic way. So yeah, we essentially find out that Lygus is protecting Amphoreus. Well, quote unquote protecting Amphoreus. and isn't going to let anyone into Amphoreus, right? And that is kind of where 3.2 ends. 3.2 finishes with us going +3 in core flames, so we're missing 2 more core flames, and then we're good. Sorry, +3 in core flames, and then we will be able to commit and complete the Era Nova, right? So it looks like we're making good progress by 3.2, which was weird, right? Because at the time of 3.2, well, by the end of 3.1, I thought, okay, it seems like we are going like Titan of the week. We're getting one Titan after one Titan after one Titan. So we'll do one patch, one patch, one patch, right, with the Titan. And then 3.2 came along, and I was like, okay, that's clearly not happening. What the hell? We went +3. Sky, Earth, Time, World Bearing. Earth is already in. By the time when we entered Amphoreus, Earth was already, let's say, taken care of, right? And time is technically taken care of at this same time when death and reason are, right? Because the trial that Ornyx gave us was to basically save ourselves. And if we manage to save ourselves, then we essentially pass the trial, right? So the only ones that are missing are Sky and World Bearing. And Sky is basically dealt with in. Actually, no. Both Sky and World Bearing are dealt with in 3.3. The Hyacinth patch. Alright, I guess this is also. Alright, sorry, my bad. In 3.2, at the end of 3.2, we also learned that there's a Lord Ravager in Amphoreus. That there's a Lord Ravager in Amphoreus, and that we won't really. And that if we're at this point, we're made to believe that if, let's say, someone breaks into Amphoreus, they will release the Ravager, right? So we don't know about Iron Tomb at this point, right? But all we know is that at this point we're made to believe that, there's a Ravager sealed in Amphoreus. I thought Evernight got time. Yes, Evernight got time, but not yet. Evernight gets time in the next cycle. In this cycle, we are the ones that get time. In the 37th cycle is when Evernight takes time. Because in this cycle, we get time because we believe that Finance is the one that has to take the world bearing. We Evernight Cyrene. Well, technically it's Cyrene, we then Evernight, if you want to be specific about it. Because I'm pretty sure in the first cycle, before, they started repeating the cycle, Evernight Cyrene was the demigod of time. And it was only after that, we became the demigod of time. But yeah. What did trigger the cycle? What do you mean? What did trigger the cycle? What triggered the cycles? Well, what triggered the cycles was what Finan and Cyrene chose to do at the beginning, right? What triggered the cycles? Essentially, they made it so that the system believed that the cycle didn't happen, so it would continuously try to repeat the last cycle. So that's kind of like what triggers each time, right? If the cycle can't complete the Era Nova, the system will restart to try and complete the cycle. And essentially went on a loop for 33 million times until it could finally complete the Era Nova, which the system wanted. But yeah, that's 3.2. Now that we talk about 3.2 again, after 6 months, in retrospect, 6.2, sorry, not 6.2, 3.2 3.2 was actually not that bad. It was actually kind of nice with like the customer stuff, right? And the Naxa stuff. Because I think at the time I still, let's say, was kind of like fine about Naxa. Like I was like enjoying him, but I wouldn't really say I was like enjoying him more than I did Castores. But now with everything, yeah, like 3.2 was actually pretty nice. And I guess, okay, I don't really need to recap this, but, and I guess at this point, like, I was like starting to think about, okay, everything's happening, but where the fuck is Cyrene? Because we know that Cyrene's a character, but we haven't seen Cyrene. The only part that we saw Cyrene, but at this point, was the finance memory where Cyrene got stabbed by Flame Hero, right? And that's kind of it. But by 3.2, you can see that things are already starting to move, right? We literally went +3. Hurt is starting to get more directly involved, and there's the stuff about the Lord Ravager, which seems to be, you know, in Amphoreus. So it's like 3.2 is literally where the plot starts to go, okay, you wanted pace, we're giving you pace, right? And then 3.3 is like when it goes like, okay, we're giving you even more pace, right? So yeah. So yeah, 3.2, yeah, it's actually pretty good. Okay. Oh my god, it's freaking 10:30. Okay. Are we really gonna spend a whole week doing this whole Amphoreus thing? Maybe. Maybe. Um Can you upload it without chats? I don't know. Maybe? I mean, I'd have to check. I'll have to see. But yeah. So yeah, yeah, tomorrow we'll continue this, and I guess tomorrow's stream should be fine. Start on the normal time. So tomorrow we should be able to cover 3.3, 3.4. No, I guess tomorrow I want to cover 3.3, 3.4, and 3.5. Because I feel like 3.6 and 3.7 have to be done with each other, right? Copium. No, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if it like roughly takes 1 hour per chapter, that's doable. I mean, 3.7 is gonna take some time because then 3.7 is where we have to like cover everything, right? But yeah. So that'll be it for today then, chat. So hopefully you guys enjoyed yourselves. I ain't no way we're doing an 8-hour. How the hell are we doing a recap that's longer than the actual story itself? Hell no. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed yourselves. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day. And I shall see you guys next time. Bye bye, chat. Take care. Alright, also we're pulling to